Well, it's a pretty day outside, so I decided to come out and enjoy it instead of staying hunkered down inside. It feels a little bit hard right now because I'm a little just concerned about feeling more in my breast and feeling more in the other armpit. And I said that the oncologist said that that's just it's so unlikely that that could have spread from the lymph of one armpit to the other. And I'm no oncologist, but I really don't get how that's so unlikely. I mean, as I understood it, what he said before was that it would have to pass through the chest wall and breastbone and lungs, and there's like a lot of distance it would need to go. And I'm guessing it means that that if it went that distance, it would lodge itself into those places along the way. So maybe that's just how it is to be interpreted. I wish I understood better. Sometimes just trying to remember things is like nearly impossible. There's a lot of information to take in, and then trying to remember it accurately later is really difficult. And I have recorded them. Well, I recorded the first couple, and then I haven't recorded them since then. And gosh, I'm going to see them whenever that is, next week or a week from early this week. And I think I'm going to record them from here on out. But most of the time I spend on Facebook these days is inside of groups. There's so many groups. And there's probably 5, I don't know, there's some number of groups that I like to go into for cancer. And then there's also one that's on primal diet, because that's right now the diet I'm trying to stick the most close to. I'm not going to say what that is or anything about that right now, but somebody made a comment about somebody else, like you either need to do the primal diet or you need to do, like basically you need to do alternative or you need to do conventional, and you shouldn't do complementary. And then they were commenting on how someone that did that died. And I just asked somebody if they were speaking from their own experience. Do they have cancer, or are they just sharing an opinion on the internet? And then they didn't respond, but somebody else responded. That was their response, actually. What I just said was that you can't do both. Somebody tried to do both and died. And God, it just made me think how, like you can't unhear something, and you can't unread or unsee and all that. And gosh, people are just full of so many opinions, myself included, of course. And I want any opportunity I can to say my opinion, just like every other person I've ever met, for the most part. But it's really, it can be really troubling to, I'm turning around, I'm walking up and down the road here, to take something in. Sometimes we hear one thing and it can just sort of eat at us, or get in our mind, get in our body, get in our emotions. So anyway, I'm just kind of thinking about that. I do believe you can do both. I believe you can do anything you want to do, but why couldn't you do Western or traditional medicine and then also do complementary alternative approaches? I mean, that's what I am doing, and that's what I believe in. But there is a part of me, I'm worried that maybe the Herceptin isn't enough. I got 500 milligrams of it, and I'm about to go get 420 or so on Wednesday. But it's been a 3-week interval. And when I was getting the IPT, it was only the 1-week interval, but it was a much lower dose. So next time I see the oncologist, I am going to ask him about that. I'm going to ask him about getting it more often, or I'm not sure. But I want to stay ahead of it, obviously. And just the feeling inside my body is that I feel it kind of flickering or smoldering, or just electrifying. There's something happening where I can feel it, and it's the same thing I felt in the beginning. So and then I'm just taking care of my partner right now, who's in a lot of pain. He had well, actually, I don't want to say what it is because I don't know. It's just not, it's, you know, it's not everyone else's business. I don't care about sharing my own business. But he had surgery, I did say that, and he's in a lot of pain, so it's a lot to try to take care of yourself and take care of your child and take care of your loved ones. I woke up this morning to go to class, to go to my hot Pilates class, and I was like, that is not the thing I need to do right now. I just felt like I wasn't strong enough to put that much out. So I'm just walking up the road talking right now on a flat surface and I'm out of breath. But I'm going to go to a class later that's very yin, a very yin practice, and I think that's what I need more of. I'm really used to a lot of yang energy. That's how I roll through life usually anyway. So the sun's so bright and beautiful today. Yeah, it feels really good to just decide and know, to make decisions based on what's happening now and get out of my head about it. I feel pretty good about my capacity to do that. It also just feels really wonderful to know that I have a lot of people rooting for me. Thank you. I just listened to a message, a voicemail from an old friend who went through this as well some years ago, and he passed along his love. Thank you if you're watching this, dear. And yeah, and then, well, that's interesting. I was just thinking, the other person recently who contacted me and told me they just got diagnosed with HER2 breast cancer. We all know each other from the early days, from our 20s and early 30s. And he's been 10 years post having cancer, and now she's just got a recent diagnosis. And my diagnosis is 4 months old, so it's kind of interesting. It's really weird to try to think about where it came from. You know, there's a lot of opinions out there, that's for sure. A lot of research as well. And then a lot of subjective experiences and beliefs that people have. And yeah, I guess it's making me think about that because the three of us were all involved in similar activities back in the day. Yeah, one of my big beliefs about where it comes from what I've gathered and what I experience and what I know is, I've said this in a couple of places, but I think a lot of the women that have breast cancer in their left breast over their heart, I really haven't found one, and I've come across, I'm not sure how many, but a lot, who had suffered a traumatic, I gotta turn around again, some sort of trauma in their lives within like 2 to 5 years or so before the diagnosis of cancer. Something that's either a divorce, separation, a death. I just read something else that said, or a person could really suffer, what is that, you know, like a crash in their status, whatever that means, I guess, losing a job and something like that, where they really take a dive in life financially. So those are pretty traumatic events, and I guess most people go through them, but at some point in their lives. But I found that really interesting. A lot of the women have either lost somebody really close to them or went through a divorce when they've had breast cancer with their heart. And that was partly the case for me. I went through a lot of suffering during that time of life. And it's been a while now, but it takes a long time, I think, to deal with the healing and the process of life, because I think divorce is like a death. It is a death. That's my experience of it. And then other things like stress or environmental factors, I think, are part of it too. But I came across a video. Did I say this in my video already? I don't think I did. And it was about the indicators for a long life, a long and healthy life, how to live to be 100 or something like that. And the things at the bottom were things like diet, exercise, lifestyle choices like that. And then the things at the top, the very top two, were, I think number 2 was the closeness of your intimate relationships, the quality of the people that are closest in your life. Do you have intimate relationships, and what is the quality of them? And then number 1 had to do with how you engage with people in the world that you come into contact with on a daily basis. So you're going throughout your day and you see the postal man and you see the grocer and you see your neighbor, and engaging with those people and being social and connecting in your life. That was actually number 1, and I found that really cool and really interesting. So and then they do these genetic tests as well to see the incidence of the cancer in your family, in your blood. I read that it's something like 15%. They ask you, one of the first questions people ask you is does anyone in your family have any cancer? And then I read it's like 15%. Does it matter? Like 15% of that gets weighed into whether or not you're going to get it yourself. And so I'm like, why such an emphasis on that? I mean, actually, once you have cancer, what's really the point of knowing that you have a genetic, what's the word? Like inclination, there's a word I'm thinking of, I can't think of it. Who cares at that point, except if you have offspring or somebody else that you need to, maybe they need to be checked or something. Like my daughter now, she's got breast cancer from her mother, and she's got breast cancer on her father's side, and not her father, but the women on her father's side. So she now has like a really high risk for it. But we didn't need genetic testing really to know that. We just needed to see that people had cancer. So I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah, I came back negative for those. I guess one thing I did read is that BRCA and some of the other ones, if you do show up positive with those, it shows the incidence of recurrence. So I didn't have those incidents of recurrence. It has, to me, I mean, that's great, but it doesn't mean that it can't come back. So I guess, you just go through and rule out what you can and narrow things down and do your best. So I'm really doing my best with the information that I have and trying to make the best choices I can. I'm looking forward to getting this next treatment so I can feel, it's like right when I get that, I feel this sort of collapse in my breast or something. It almost feels dead in a way, and that's a good feeling. I want my breast to feel dead and not alive, because when it feels alive, it's just like I feel the little cells eating and jumping or whatever they do in there, and I don't want them to do that anymore. So when I get the treatment, I can feel the breast kind of like shrink back down or something like that. Collapse is really the best word for it I can think of. And then I'll meet with the oncologist and see where to go from there. I haven't gotten the referral yet to UCSF for the surgeon, and I don't want to get my hopes shot from that. I'm really hoping that I can get there sooner than later. Gosh, to get a consult, I haven't even gotten a call for that yet. I'll have to follow up and see what's happening there. But I'm nervous to have surgery in our small little town. I mean, I do believe I feel safer somehow being in a well-known hospital with doctors who do this all the time, and they're funded, and they just that really makes me feel better than a sleepy little town with maybe there's only a few surgeons. Maybe they're good, but it's just my own preference. So I'm looking for that. Hope you can hear this. I think my finger was covering the volume. The speaker, I mean. All right. Thanks. Have a great one. Thanks for being there with me.